Red crystals pulsed through the archive's neural matrix as alarms screamed through the crystalline chamber. First observer. Thanatos' tendrils whipped frantically across the holographic displays, his four eyes darting between data streams. The emergency lights cast eerie shadows across the curved walls, making the normally peaceful chamber feel like a war room. "Unidentified vessel in Sector 7, an aide shouted, their scales flickering with stress patterns. It just appeared. No warp signature, no distortion field, nothing. The main screen crackled as War Commander Dragon's massive head materialized. His tusks gleamed menacingly in the dim light of his command center. First observer, explain this breach immediately. My Vorkath battle fleet stands ready. We hunger for combat. Working on identification, Thanatos clicked, his tendrils dancing through archived ship profiles. Streams of data flowed through his crystalline form. The vessel's configuration is unlike anything in our current database. The design is alien to our records. In the background, Ilara clutched her head, her empathic receptors overwhelmed by the waves of emotion flooding the chamber. Such fear, she whispered, steadying herself against a crystal pillar. The staff, they're terrified, but why? It's just one ship. There's something else. Something deeper. Because it shouldn't be possible, Thanatos muttered, his voice tight with concern. That sector has our best detection grid. Nothing gets through without triggering at least 3 layers of sensors. This ship, it's as if it materialized from nowhere. I don't care about possibilities, Dragon roared, slamming his fist down. I care about results. Give me a target. My warriors grow restless. Thanatos' tendrils reached deeper, accessing ancient records locked away for centuries. The matching algorithm pinged, and his blood ran cold. The ship's profile rotated on screen, sleek, predatory, bearing markings that hadn't been seen in centuries. Its hull bristled with weapons that shouldn't exist. By the first ones, he breathed. It's human. What? Dragon's eye ridges bunched in confusion, his tusks clicking together. Impossible. They're primitives, barely past their first moon landing. We've watched their progress ourselves. But the data didn't lie. There it was in glowing text. UFS Prometheus, human military vessel. The implications sent chills through Thanatos' crystalline form. Thanatos' tendrils trembled. Their entire assessment of humanity had just been proven catastrophically wrong. Centuries of careful observation and assumptions had crumbled in an instant. Thanatos' mind raced as he processed the impossible. A human warship, here, now. The implications were staggering. He had to act quickly, but before he could issue a command, an emergency call came through. The High Council demanded immediate visuals. I want visuals, Cathrax demanded, slamming his massive fist against the control panel. The holographic chamber flickered and hummed as additional council members joined, their translucent forms shimmering into existence like ghosts in the dim light. Zixtal's tendrils danced across the controls with practiced ease, bringing up a 3-dimensional image of the intruding vessel. Its sleek hull gleamed against the starfield, all sharp angles and metal plating, unlike the smooth organic curves of concordant ships. Strange markings decorated its side in an alien script. The UFS Prometheus, Zixtal announced, his voice trembling with a mix of fear and excitement. Its drive signature defies our understanding. Look at these readings. They break every rule we know about space travel. Data streams cascaded around the ship's image in a waterfall of numbers and symbols. The assembled council members murmured and pointed as energy patterns pulsed in impossible configurations, defying known physics. One ship? Admiral Vornak sneered, his battle-scarred face twisting into an ugly smile. His cybernetic eye glowed red with battle lust. The Vorkath battle group will crush it like space debris. We'll teach them to fear us. Ilara stepped forward, her silver robes catching the light and throwing rainbow reflections across the chamber walls. Wait, I sense urgency. Desperation. These humans didn't come to fight. Their emotions scream of warning and fear. They violated our most secure space, Kithrax growled, baring razor-sharp teeth. Their intentions are irrelevant. Protocol demands immediate response. We cannot show weakness. But Ilara started, raising her hand in protest. No. Kithrax's massive form seemed to fill the chamber, his scales bristling with anger. I'm mobilizing the 7th Fleet. We'll show these humans the price of trespassing in our territory. Zixtal's tendrils curled anxiously around his control panel. The regulations are clear, Empath Ilara. Unauthorized vessels must be intercepted. We have no choice in this matter. The Vorkath battle group never fails, Admiral Vornak boasted, puffing out his armored chest. We'll sweep through their defenses like a solar storm. They'll make excellent target practice. Ilara pressed her hands to her temples, wincing at the intensity of the emotions she was picking up. There's more here than we understand. The emotional imprint. It's like nothing I've encountered. This isn't aggression, it's pure terror. But Kithrax was already issuing orders, his eyes gleaming with anticipation of battle. All ships, battle formation Delta. We'll surround them, disable their strange drive, and show them true concordate power. No one challenges us in our own space. The Council watched in tense silence as dozens of Vorkath warships began moving into position, their organic hulls rippling with deadly energy. Warning lights pulsed along their weapon arrays. They won't know what hit them, Kithrax declared, his holographic image starting to fade. Victory for the Concordate. Let this be a lesson to all who dare intrude in our domain. Kithrax's order sent the fleet into motion, their warships surging toward the lone human vessel. The Prometheus hung in space, eerily silent, as if daring them to make the first move. Within moments, the Vorkath battle fleet emerged from hyperspace, weapons primed. Kithrax's battle fleet burst into normal space, their massive warships forming a deadly net around the lone human vessel. The UFS Prometheus hung there, sleek and dangerous, its hull gleaming under the distant starlight. The Vorkath ships dwarfed it, their angular hulls bristling with weapon ports and armor plating. Open communications, Kithrax growled, his claws digging into the arms of his command chair. All frequencies. His communications officer's mandibles clicked nervously. Channel ready, War Leader. Broadcasting on all bands. Unknown vessel. This is War Leader Kithrax of the Concordate Defense Force. You have breached restricted space. Surrender immediately or face destruction. His voice carried the weight of countless victories. Silence filled the command deck. The human ship didn't move, floating defiantly against the backdrop of stars. They ignore us? Kithrax's scales bristled, turning a deeper shade of green with anger. Fire a warning shot. Inside the Prometheus, Captain Maya Rodriguez stood calmly at her command station. The bridge hummed with quiet efficiency as her crew worked their stations, their movements practiced and sure. Still no response on their frequencies, Captain, Lieutenant Vega reported from Tactical, his fingers dancing across the holographic controls. Maya nodded, a slight smile playing at her lips. Maintain defensive posture. No lethal force unless we have no choice. She watched as energy blasts from the Vorkath ships lit up space around them, turning the void into a deadly light show. They're charging weapons across their fleet, Vega warned, his console flashing red. All ships powering up main guns. Evasive pattern Delta, Maya ordered, her voice steady. Shields at maximum. The Prometheus moved like a dancer, twisting and rolling between streams of deadly energy fire. The ship's inertial dampeners somehow kept the crew steady, despite maneuvers that should have turned them to paste. Crew members barely felt a tremor as the ship performed impossible turns. Kithrax slammed his fist on his command console, cracking the display. Impossible. No ship that size can move like that. What sorcery is this? The human vessel's shields flickered and shifted, adapting to each new weapon signature the Vorkath threw at it. Their most powerful shots splashed harmlessly against the barrier, creating beautiful cascades of energy that dissipated into space. "Second wave, all ships," Cathrax roared, spittle flying from his jaws. "Concentrate fire." But before he could finish, the Prometheus simply vanished. One moment it was there, the next, nothing. Their sensors showed empty space where the human ship had been, not even a trace of an energy signature remaining. "Find them," Cathrax demanded, but his crew could only stare at their blank screens in stunned silence. For the first time in his long career, the war leader felt a chill of uncertainty run down his spine. One moment the human vessel was there, the next it had vanished without a trace. Cathrax's claws dug into his command chair as frustration boiled within him. He would not allow his fleet to be humiliated again. Snarling, he barked a new command: "Find them. Now." Cathrax slammed his armored fist against the command console, making his bridge crew flinch. The empty space where the human ship had been mocked him. The holographic displays flickered from the impact, casting eerie shadows across his scarred face. "Find them," he roared. "Deploy search patterns Omega 6 through 12. No single ship makes fools of the Vorkath battle fleet." His voice echoed through the bridge, causing even his most seasoned warriors to straighten their backs. His massive warships spread out in a deadly dance, sensor arrays at maximum power. But the human vessel had vanished completely, leaving not even an energy trace. The stars seemed to mock their efforts, twinkling silently in the void. Back in the crystalline chambers of the archive, Zixtal's appendages flew over holographic interfaces. "Fascinating," they muttered. "Their communication protocols are unlike anything in our databases." The air hummed with the energy of countless data streams being processed simultaneously. A string of broken transmissions flickered across their screens. "Urgent warning, Void Collective, expanding faster than billions already lost." In her meditation chamber, Ilara pressed her hands to her temples. The psychic impressions flooding in from the human ship nearly overwhelmed her. "So much fear," she whispered. "Not for themselves, but for—" She gasped as another wave hit her, her fingers trembling against her skin. "They're trying to save us. They're desperate to make us understand." On the bridge of the Prometheus, Captain Maya Rodriguez studied the tactical display showing Cathrax's searching fleet. Her jaw clenched as she watched the enemy ships move in their practiced formations. "We can't keep playing hide-and-seek forever," she said to her officers. "But we can't let them shoot first and ask questions later either." Her first officer nodded, worry lines creasing his forehead. "The Void Collective is too great a threat. We have to find a way to make them listen." "Sir," Cathrax's sensor officer called out, his clawed hands dancing across the controls. "We're detecting fragmentary transmissions. The human vessel is trying to broadcast on multiple frequencies simultaneously." Cathrax growled, baring his sharp teeth. "Ignore their attempts at deception. Continue the search pattern." But in the archive, Zixtal's excitement grew as they pieced together more fragments, their crystalline form glowing brighter with each new discovery. Civilization after civilization cannot be reasoned with. Only way to stop them is. The transmission cut off, but Ilara felt the truth of it in her bones. These humans weren't invaders. They were messengers racing against time itself. The weight of their purpose pressed against her mind like a physical force. The archive's communication crystals pulsed with urgent light as more broken messages filtered through, each one hinting at a darkness spreading across the galaxy. A darkness the humans had apparently faced before. The ancient hall seemed to vibrate with the gravity of these revelations. Most unusual, Zixtal mused, their scientific curiosity warring with protocol. Their crystalline form shimmered with conflicting patterns of light. Their technology suggests capabilities far beyond what our assessment indicated, and these warnings. As the Vorkath warship scattered to search for their elusive prey, Ilara shuddered under the weight of the psychic impressions still lingering from the human vessel. They weren't just running, they were trying to warn them. But would anyone listen before it was too late? Inside the crystalline observation deck of the archivist vessel, Ilara watched distant stars shimmer through the transparent walls. The ever-shifting patterns of light cast dancing shadows across her face as her silver robes rustled softly when she turned to face Zixtal. "Let me try to reach them," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "The humans fled from violence, but perhaps they'll respond to understanding. Their actions speak of desperation, not aggression." Zixtal's metallic appendages clicked and whirred as he considered her words, the sound echoing in the quiet chamber. "Cuthrax won't wait forever. His pride is wounded, and you know how he gets when someone makes him look foolish. Then we must act quickly." Ilara's violet eyes fixed on the space where the Prometheus had vanished, her gaze intense and focused. "Their transmissions speak of something called the Void Collective. I sense great fear when those words appear. It's like a shadow that darkens their every thought." "Very well," Zixtal agreed, his tone heavy with concern. "But be careful. We know nothing of human mental defenses. They might not be what they seem." Ilara settled into a meditation pose, her consciousness expanding outward like ripples in a pond. She focused on the scrambled signals still echoing through space, using them as a thread to follow, like a trail of breadcrumbs through the cosmic void. There, a flicker of thought, of emotion, a mind burning bright with purpose and worry, shining like a beacon in the darkness. The contact was like touching a live wire. Images flooded Ilara's mind. Massive black ships that devoured whole worlds, colonies reduced to ash, desperate battles in the dark between stars. She felt the weight of command, the burden of knowing Earth's leaders had chosen isolation over warning others, the guilt of keeping silent while others died. But strongest of all was the fierce determination to prevent more deaths, to stop the darkness from spreading, even if it meant being branded a traitor. The emotions were raw and real. There was no deception here. Ilara gasped, breaking the connection. She steadied herself against a crystal pillar, her hands shaking as she tried to process what she'd seen. Sweat beaded on her forehead. "What did you see?" Zixtal asked urgently, moving closer to support her if needed. "They're not here to harm us," Ilara whispered, still processing the emotional impact of touching Captain Rodriguez's mind. Her voice grew stronger as she continued. "They're trying to save us all, and if what I saw is true, we don't have much time." Ilara's mind still reeled from the psychic contact. She had felt desperation, grief, and something even deeper, determination. If the council refused to listen, then she would have to make them understand, even if it meant defying Cuthrax himself. Ilara stumbled backward, her silver ceremonial robes swirling like liquid metal as she gripped the edge of a crystal console. Her violet eyes were wide, filled with the haunting echo of human memories that threatened to overwhelm her senses. "By the first light," she gasped, her voice barely a whisper. The devastation. Entire worlds. Gone. Consumed. There was nothing left but darkness. Zixtal moved closer, his crystalline form catching starlight from the viewport and scattering it in rainbow patterns. "What did you see? What could shake an empath so deeply?" "The humans." Ilara's voice shook with raw emotion. "They're not invaders. They're messengers, trying to warn us all. They're colonies. I felt Captain Rodriguez's pain as if it were my own. The loss, the Void Collective, it devours everything in its path like a plague of darkness." "Impossible," Zixtal clicked, his crystal segments shifting uneasily. "We would have detected such a threat. Our sensor networks span 3 sectors." "Not if it moves through spaces we don't monitor," Ilara insisted, pushing herself upright. "The humans developed their technology in secret, fighting this enemy alone because they had no choice. They've lost so much." Before Zixtal could respond, Cuthrax's hologram blazed to life in angry red tones. "We've found them. The human vessel is hiding in the Kalthori asteroid belt. Their tricks end today." "Cuthrax, wait!" Ilara pleaded, reaching toward the hologram. There's more you need to know, the truth about why they're here. No more delays, Kithrax growled, baring his fangs. My fleet moves now. We'll show these humans the price of defying the Concordate's laws. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Maya Rodriguez watched her tactical display light up with approaching Vorkath signatures like angry red wasps. Lieutenant Vega looked up from his station, worry clear on his face. Captain, there are 3 cargo haulers in the next sector, he reported, fingers dancing over his console. If the Vorkath open fire... Maya nodded grimly, already knowing what had to be done. Plot a course away from the civilian ships. Send out a distress beacon. Make it look like we're damaged. That should draw them after us instead. But Captain, that'll put us right in their crosshairs, Vega protested, his hands freezing over the controls. We'll be a sitting duck. Better us than innocent lives, Maya said firmly, settling into her command chair. Ready all defensive systems. We're about to give the Vorkath another chase to remember. Let's show them how humans dance. Back in the council chamber, Ilara watched helplessly as Kithrax's fleet moved into attack position, their weapons charging. The Vorkath commander's satisfaction radiated through his hologram like waves of heat. This time, Kithrax declared, his mandibles clicking with anticipation, the humans won't escape. Victory is at hand. Back aboard the Prometheus, Maya knew they were out of time. The Vorkath would come for them again, and this time, there would be no escape unless she found a way to make them listen. She turned to her crew. We need a new plan. The Vorkath battle group emerged from warp, their dark hulls gleaming against the backdrop of the asteroid belt like obsidian knives cutting through space. Kithrax stood on his command deck, mandibles clicking with anticipation as he surveyed the tactical display. Target locked, his weapons officer announced, antennae twitching excitedly. Human vessel detected behind the large nickel iron mass. They appear to be running silent. Aboard the Prometheus, Captain Maya Rodriguez watched the tactical display with steady eyes, her fingers drumming a quiet rhythm on her armrest. Evasive pattern Delta, she ordered, leaning forward slightly. Lieutenant Vega, keep us close to the bigger rocks. Use their mass signatures to mask our engine output. The ship responded instantly, ducking behind a massive asteroid as green energy beams sliced through space. Maya's crew worked in perfect sync, their movements practiced and smooth, each person anticipating the next command before it came. Multiple vessels approaching from Sector 7, Vega reported, his hands dancing across the controls. 3 destroyers and 2 scout ships, moving to flank us. Suddenly, the asteroid field shifted. A cascade of rocks tumbled toward a small Vorkath scout ship, set in motion by the destroyer's weapon discharge. Kithrax watched in horror as his patrol craft spun helplessly in the debris field, its maneuvering thrusters damaged. They'll be crushed, his second-in-command stated flatly. The hull integrity is already compromised. But before the rocks could impact, a blue shield bubble expanded from the Prometheus, enveloping the vulnerable Vorkath ship. The asteroids bounced harmlessly off the energy barrier, scattering into smaller pieces that drifted away into space. Kithrax's compound eyes widened, all 4 pupils dilating in surprise. They protected our vessel after we fired upon them? Sir, his tactical officer interrupted, mandibles clicking urgently. We have a clear shot at their engines. They've depleted their shields to save our scout ship. Kithrax hesitated for a split second, but tradition and duty won out. Fire! The Prometheus twisted gracefully, avoiding the worst of the barrage like a dancer sidestepping clumsy partners. Maya's voice remained calm as she gave her next order. No return fire. Initiate jump sequence. But Captain, Vega protested, sweat beading on his forehead, we could disable their weapons. No, Maya said firmly, shaking her head. We're not here to fight. That's not our mission. Execute jump. The human ship vanished in a flash of light, leaving Kithrax staring at the empty space where they had been. His rescued patrol ship limped back to the fleet, trailing a thin line of plasma from its damaged hull. "Why would they save us?" he muttered, his certainty about the humans' hostile intentions beginning to crack. "It makes no tactical sense." From her observation post, Ilara felt the ripples of confusion emanating from the Vorkath commander. She smiled softly, hope blooming in her heart. Perhaps there was more to these humans than even the Concordat understood. Kithrax had expected the humans to retaliate, to exploit their moment of vulnerability. Instead, they had saved his scout ship. As his fleet regrouped, uncertainty gnawed at him. Perhaps there was more to these humans than arrogance and defiance. In the crystalline chamber of the Concordat capital, heated voices echoed off the polished walls. Counselors from various species gestured animatedly as they debated the human situation. The air crackled with tension as each representative tried to make their position heard above the others. "The law is clear," Elder Vaxthor rumbled, his scaled hide reflecting the chamber's soft light, teeth flashing as he spoke. "Any unauthorized vessel must be destroyed. We cannot show weakness. Our ancestors wrote these laws in blood." Ilara stood calmly in the center of the chamber, her silver robes flowing as she turned to address each speaker. The gentle swish of fabric provided a stark contrast to the angry voices around her. What I sensed from their captain was not aggression but desperate urgency. The images I glimpsed. She paused, composing herself, a slight tremor in her voice. "The Void Collective poses a threat beyond anything we've faced. I saw entire worlds turn to ash." A holographic projection of Kithrax flickered to life, his massive warrior form towering over the others. "These humans made fools of my fleet twice, yet ... He seemed to struggle with his next words, mandibles clicking in frustration. "They protected our scout ships from an asteroid collision. They could have let us die. A true enemy wouldn't have bothered." Zixtel studied the data crystals floating before him, each containing sensor readings from the encounters. The crystals spun and pulsed with information as his many eyes tracked their movement. "Their technology exceeds our projections by centuries. If they wanted war, they could have inflicted severe damage. Their weapon systems alone are beyond our understanding." "The humans have shown remarkable restraint," Ilara added, her voice carrying clearly across the chamber. "They've gone to great lengths to avoid casualties while trying to deliver their warning. Each encounter shows their commitment to peace." Another counselor, Ambassador Wren, leaned forward, his tentacles writhing with anxiety. "But can we trust them? This could be an elaborate deception. We've been fooled before." "I felt their minds," Ilara insisted, touching her temple for emphasis. "Their fear for us, for all sentient life, was genuine. The Void Collective has already destroyed several of their colonies. I saw the memories of their losses, felt their pain." Zixtel's crystalline appendages shifted as he processed the information, creating a soft, chiming sound. "Our historical data suggests humans were primitive, yet they've achieved capabilities that rival our own. Perhaps ... He paused, lights flickering across his surface. "Perhaps our assumptions require revision. We may have been wrong about them all along." After several more heated exchanges that nearly came to blows, Zixtel raised his primary appendage for silence. "I propose a compromise. We will dispatch a single Meridian vessel, unarmed, to establish diplomatic contact. Ilara will lead this mission. Her empathic abilities make her uniquely suited for this task." "And the Vorkath fleet?" Kithrax demanded, his hologram crackling with interference from his agitation. "They will stand down temporarily," Zixtel declared, his tone leaving no room for argument. "We need answers more than we need conflict. War can always come later if we are wrong." The council chamber erupted in mixed reactions, shouts, growls, and the clicking of various appendages filled the air, but Zixtel's decision was final. He turned to Ilara. "You have one standard cycle to make contact. Choose your team carefully. The fate of the Concordat may rest on your success." Ilara bowed gracefully, her robes shimmering in the chamber's light. "Thank you, First Observer. I believe this is the wisest course. Sometimes the greatest strength lies in listening rather than striking." Ilara stepped onto the Meridian shuttle with a heart full of purpose. She was going to face the humans herself. If war was coming, she needed to know if it was truly necessary, or if they had a chance to forge something greater. The sleek Meridian shuttle glided through space, its pearlescent hull reflecting distant starlight like scattered diamonds. Inside, Ilara took slow, measured breaths to center herself, a technique she'd practiced since childhood. The weight of this mission pressed heavily on her shoulders. She would be the first Concordate representative to officially meet humans in centuries. The fate of billions might rest on what happened in the next few hours. "Approaching UFS Prometheus," her pilot announced, voice tight with tension. His fingers danced across the controls with practiced grace, broadcasting greeting signals on all frequencies. Through the viewport, Ilara studied the human vessel. Its dark hull seemed to drink in the light, and despite its impressive size, something about its lines suggested it could vanish in an instant if threatened. The ship radiated both power and restraint, like a sleeping predator. Strange energy readings flickered at the edge of her awareness, hinting at systems far beyond what should be possible. "Meridian vessel, this is UFS Prometheus," a clear voice responded in perfect Concordate standard, surprising Ilara with its flawless accent. "We detect no weapons on your craft. Maintain current vector. Docking procedures will begin shortly." Ilara felt the gentle pull as the human ship's tractor beam guided them into a brightly lit docking bay. Her empathic senses tingled with the mixture of emotions emanating from the crew, waves of exhaustion overlaid with sharp alertness, hope tempered by deep worry, and a steely determination that seemed uniquely human. The intensity of their feelings washed over her like a tide. As the airlock cycled, Ilara smoothed her ceremonial robes, their soft fabric rustling beneath her fingers. Two human security officers waited on the other side, their faces professionally neutral, but minds humming with readiness. The woman among them, Sergeant Chan, Ilara picked up from surface thoughts, kept one hand near her holstered weapon, though her stance remained welcoming. "Welcome aboard," said a tall human with kind eyes but a commanding presence. Her uniform was crisp and neat, bearing marks of rank that Ilara had studied in preparation for this meeting. "I'm Captain Maya Rodriguez, thank you for coming." Ilara bowed slightly, broadcasting waves of peaceful intention. "I am honored to meet you, Captain. I am Meridian Empath Ilara." She noted how the captain's mind felt different from the others, focused like a laser yet somehow warm. "Please, follow me to our conference room." Maya gestured. "We have much to discuss." They walked through corridors that thrummed with hidden power. Ilara noticed how the human crew moved with precise efficiency, every motion speaking of extensive training. Through doorways, she glimpsed their engineering chief, Ade Rivers, monitoring complex systems that defied Concordate technological restrictions. The sight made her wonder just how much humanity had advanced in their isolation. The conference room was simple but elegant, with a large viewport showing the stars beyond. As they sat down, Ilara felt the weight of history settling around them. Here, at last, humans and the Concordate would speak as equals. The moment felt both momentous and fragile. "Before we begin," Maya said, placing a data crystal on the table between them, "this contains preliminary information about the Void Collective, a gesture of good faith." The crystal caught the light, its facets gleaming with stored knowledge. Ilara sensed no deception, only urgent sincerity radiating from the captain. "Thank you, Captain. The Concordate appreciates this openness, though some," she thought of Kathrax and his suspicious nature, "may take longer to trust." "Trust is earned," Maya acknowledged, her tone carrying years of hard-won wisdom. "We're prepared to share what we know, but time is critical." The security officers maintained their vigilant watch, minds razor-sharp despite their outward calm. Ilara recognized their protective devotion to their captain and crew. It radiated from them like a shield, born from countless shared challenges and victories. She settled into her chair, drawing on years of diplomatic training. The familiar exercises helped steady her racing thoughts. "Then let us begin, Captain Rodriguez. Tell me about the threat that drove you to break centuries of silence." As Ilara settled into her seat, the human captain's presence loomed large before her. Maya's gaze was steady, unwavering. This meeting could change the fate of two civilizations, but only if they could learn to trust each other. Through the Prometheus's conference room viewport, distant stars gleamed like scattered diamonds as Maya activated a holographic display. Three-dimensional images flickered to life, casting an eerie blue glow across their faces as they showed entire solar systems being consumed by writhing darkness that seemed to devour light itself. "This is what happens when the Void Collective arrives," Maya said quietly, her fingers clenched at her sides. "They don't just conquer, they absorb. Convert, destroy everything that makes a civilization unique. We've seen them wipe out entire species in days." Ilara watched in horror as the recordings showed massive ships, black as space itself, descending on populated worlds. Cities crumbled under their shadow while streams of terrified civilians fled. How long have humans been fighting this? Why haven't we detected them before?" "Too long," Maya's voice cracked with raw emotion. "We've lost colonies, good people, friends and families. The collective turns them into drones, empty shells serving a hive mind." She gestured, and the hologram shifted to show vacant-eyed humans shuffling through destroyed cities, their movements jerky and unnatural. Aid Rivers, the ship's chief engineer, stepped forward with additional data crystals in her weathered hands. "These are the collective's projected approach vectors," she said, bringing up a new star chart that filled the room with red warning lines. "Based on their patterns, they'll reach concordate space within months. Your outer colonies will be first. We've tracked their movements across 3 sectors." Ilara's hands trembled as she studied the data, her face pale in the hologram's glow. May I verify?" she asked hesitantly, raising her hands to indicate her telepathic abilities. "I need to know for certain." Maya nodded grimly, squaring her shoulders. "Go ahead. But be warned, these memories aren't pleasant. They keep me up at night." As Ilara's mind touched Maya's, the raw anguish nearly overwhelmed her. She saw flashes of desperate battles, felt the captain's grief as reports came in of lost outposts, experienced the gut-wrenching decision to defy orders and warn the Concordate despite the risks. The weight of responsibility crushed down on her. "You're telling the truth," Ilara whispered, tears streaming down her face. "All of it. You came here to help us, even knowing how we might react, even knowing we could kill you for it." Sergeant Chan, who had been watching silently from the corner with his hand near his weapon, suddenly stiffened. "Captain, incoming priority message from Concordate Space." The room's main screen flared to life, showing Zixtal's worried face, his usual composure cracking. "Ilara, you must return immediately. Kithrax has gathered additional battleships. They're moving to intercept the Prometheus's position. He won't listen to reason. He's convinced this is all an elaborate human deception." Maya's expression hardened into a mask of determination. "How long do we have?" "Minutes at most," Zixtal replied, glancing nervously over his shoulder. "Kithrax is determined to either capture or destroy your vessel. The parley means nothing to him. He's already powered up his weapon systems." Ilara felt the spike of frustration from Maya, but also her iron determination. They were running out of time to convince the Concordate of the looming threat, and she could sense the captain already forming contingency plans in her mind. Maya's warning was out, but would anyone listen? Even as the Concordate scrambled to interpret the data, Kithrax had already made his decision. His fleet would move. Whether in diplomacy or destruction, the humans would face judgment. In the gleaming crystal halls of the Concordate capital, Zixtal's data crystals pulsed with urgent messages. The council chamber buzzed with heated arguments. The humans have shown restraint at every turn, Zixtal insisted, his crystalline form catching the light. They could have destroyed our ships, yet they chose mercy. Restraint, Cathrax's hologram thundered. They make fools of us. The Vorkath will not stand for such insults. Around the circular chamber, council members shifted uneasily. A Meridian elder spoke up, her voice soft but firm. If what Ilara reports is true, we face a greater threat than speculation, Cathrax cut in. While we debate, their warship sits in our territory, flaunting technologies that threaten our very way of life. Zixtal pulled up footage of the previous encounters. Observe their tactical choices, each maneuver designed to avoid casualties. These are not the actions of conquerors. Back on the Prometheus, Ilara stood beside Maya as they received the transmission about the approaching Vorkath fleet. You should return to your shuttle, Maya said gently. We won't risk your life in this standoff. Ilara's silver eyes met Maya's. Number, I've seen the truth in your mind, felt the weight of your mission. If I leave now, the Vorkath will never listen. She straightened her shoulders. I stay. Through their telepathic link, Maya felt the Meridian's unwavering conviction. It matched her own determination to prevent more worlds from falling to the void. On the capital world, Cathrax's final message rang through the chamber. The fleet moves now. Either they surrender, or we end this game. Zixtal watched helplessly as the Vorkath battleships jumped to light speed, their destination locked on the Prometheus's position. All his logical arguments had failed against wounded pride and fear of the unknown. May the stars grant us wisdom, he whispered, before it's too late. As the Prometheus braced for battle, Maya knew this was their last chance. They had reached out in peace, and now they would see if the Concordate's fear outweighed their reason. Cathrax's massive fleet dropped out of hyperspace, their gunports glowing with charged weapons. The Prometheus hung in space beside the small Meridian shuttle, dwarfed by the wall of Vorkath warships. Surrender now, Cathrax's voice boomed across the comm channels. This is your final warning. A burst of energy lanced out from his flagship, striking the Prometheus's port side. The ship rocked but held steady, its defensive shields flickering with strange patterns the Vorkath had never seen before. Engineering status? Maya called out, gripping her command chair. Shields holding at 89%, Aide reported from her station, fingers flying across the controls. But they're targeting our engine cores. 2 more hits like that and we'll lose maneuverability. Ilara stepped forward on the bridge, her silvery eyes reflecting the flashing alerts. Please, Cathrax, you must listen. These humans speak the truth. I've seen it in their minds. Traitor, Cathrax snarled. You side with invaders against your own people? More shots struck the Prometheus as Simone Chan's security teams rushed to defensive positions throughout the ship. Captain, boarding parties likely if they breach the shields, she reported grimly. Maya watched the tactical display, seeing the Vorkath ships moving to surround them completely. They were running out of options, and time. Lieutenant Vega, prepare for emergency maneuvers, she ordered. Then her expression hardened with determination. Aide, I need ship-wide broadcasts, all frequencies, maximum range. But Captain, that'll expose our position to... Do it now. The comm systems crackled to life as Maya stood, her voice clear and urgent. This is Captain Maya Rodriguez of the UFS Prometheus. To all concordate worlds within range, we come bearing critical warning. The Void Collective, a force that has already consumed dozens of human colonies, approaches your borders. They do not negotiate. They do not show mercy. We came here despite our orders, risking everything, because we refuse to let another civilization fall, as we have watched so many others. The transmission dissolved into static as another volley rocked the ship. The first shots had been fired. Across the Concordate, Maya's warning rippled through the networks, reaching ears both cautious and defiant. Now, all that remained was the response. Across the Concordate's vast territory, Maya's broadcast rippled through communication networks. On countless worlds, beings of all species gathered around screens, watching the human captain's warning play again and again. The Void Collective isn't just coming. They're here, Maya's recorded voice echoed. We've fought them for years. They consume everything in their path. In the Grand Council chamber, Zixtal's crystalline displays flickered with incoming messages from planetary governors demanding answers. The archivist's fingers flew across holographic controls, pulling up ancient records. By the first light, he whispered, data crystals pulsing with recovered information. The legends speak of them, a darkness that devours stars. On the bridge of his flagship, Kithrax watched his targeting display, weapons still locked on the Prometheus. His mandibles clicked with uncertainty. Hold fire, he ordered, surprising his crew. Aboard the human vessel, Ilara stood beside Maya at the command console. More officials are responding, she said, her telepathic senses overwhelmed by waves of fear from across the sector. They want to know everything we know about the collective. Send them what we have, Maya nodded. Basic defense protocols first. They'll need. A priority alert cut through all channels. The message was brief but chilling. Frontier Station Delta 9 has ceased all transmissions. Last report indicates unknown mass approaching from deep space. Zixtal's voice crackled across the emergency frequency. Long-range sensors confirm something massive has crossed our border. Energy signature matches nothing in our database. The council chamber erupted into chaos as representatives from a dozen species argued about how to respond. On screens throughout the chamber, sensor readings showed a dark mass moving through space, consuming everything in its path. The humans were right, one council member whispered, mandibles trembling. The Void Collective is here. In the cold silence of space, the Void Collective made its first move. As the Concordate debated, the enemy advanced, and soon, discussion would no longer be an option. Inside the Prometheus's battle-scarred conference room, Kithrax's massive frame towered over the gathered humans. His honor guard gripped their weapons tightly, watching Captain Rodriguez with suspicious eyes. Show me, Kithrax demanded gruffly. Show me why we should trust you. Maya nodded to Aide, who brought up a holographic display. The room filled with images that made even the seasoned Vorkath warriors step back. Entire planets consumed by writhing darkness, colonial outposts transformed into hive-minded drones, defense fleets torn apart by impossible geometries. This was New Eden Colony, Maya said quietly, pointing to a world being devoured. 10 million souls, gone in hours. Kithrax's mandibles clicked with tension. These recordings, they're genuine. I wish they weren't, Maya replied. We've lost too many good people learning how to fight them. Ilara stood between them, her empathic senses swimming with the raw pain of Maya's memories and Kithrax's growing dread. A transmission crackled through. War leader, Zixtal's voice was urgent. Our deep space arrays confirm it. The entity matching these recordings has breached our outer defense line. Kithrax paced, his warrior's pride warring with tactical necessity. He studied the human captain's face, then the battle footage again. Your weapons, your stealth technology, this is how you've survived against them. Barely, Maya answered, but we've learned their weaknesses. Things that might help your people survive what's coming. The Vorkath leader's fists clenched and unclenched. Finally, he turned to his guards. Lower your weapons, he ordered. Looking back at Maya, his voice carried the weight of centuries of tradition bending to necessity. Tell me everything you know about fighting these abominations. The Vorkath will not let our worlds fall while we argue among ourselves. Maya extended her hand, a human gesture of partnership. After a moment's hesitation, Kithrax clasped it with his massive clawed hand. Let's get to work, she said. We don't have much time. The images of destruction flickered before Kithrax's eyes. This wasn't a human trick. It was a war beyond anything they had faced. And for the first time, he saw the humans not as adversaries, but as potential allies. Maya activated a holographic display in the center of the conference room. The ghostly blue light illuminated worried faces as a recording played of a void collective attack on a human colony. "This was New Eden," she said quietly. "Population of 3 million. The collective consumed it in under 6 hours." The footage showed massive organic mechanical hybrid ships descending from orbit. Dark tendrils reached out, converting buildings and people into grotesque machinery. Cathrax's mandibles clicked in dismay. "Their tactics are unlike anything you've faced," Maya continued. "Traditional battle formations won't work. They don't think like we do. They're a hive mind that adapts instantly." Aide Rivers stepped forward, her engineer's uniform stained with coolant. "But we've found ways to fight back. If we combine your weapon's energy signature with our shield harmonics, we can create a defensive screen they can't adapt to." Through the hololink, Zixtal's crystalline form sparkled. "The archives contain ancient references to such a threat. We can provide detailed stellar maps to track their likely approach vectors." "My empathic scans suggest they haven't reached full strength yet," Ilara added, "but their presence grows stronger by the hour." Cathrax studied the tactical displays, his earlier hostility giving way to grim determination. "The Vorkath battle doctrine must evolve. How do you propose we reorganize our fleet?" Maya brought up a new hologram showing an intricate, multi-layered formation. "We fight in rotating waves, never presenting the same pattern twice. Your ships here and here, supported by Meridian vessels. The Prometheus will coordinate from the center." As the leaders discussed strategy, Simone Chan directed her security teams to share combat data with the Vorkath warriors. Despite the language barrier, professional soldiers found common ground in preparing for battle. Within hours, a combined fleet assembled in high orbit. The sleek Vorkath warships formed up alongside elegant Meridian vessels, while archivist sensor drones wove between them in complex patterns. At the heart of the formation, the battle-worn Prometheus stood ready. Maya looked out at the assembled forces, former enemies now allies against extinction. "All ships, set course for the frontier station. Maximum speed." With their battle plan set, the fleet surged forward, a combined force of former enemies united by necessity. At the edge of concordate space, a station had gone silent. They would soon learn why. The Allied fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the frontier station. Maya's heart sank at the sight before them. The once pristine station was now a twisted mass of metal and organic matter, its hull breached in multiple places. "Life signs?" Maya asked, her voice tight. Lieutenant Vega shook his head. "None that are purely organic, Captain." Through the view screen, they could see writhing tendrils of biomechanical matter spreading across the station's surface like infected veins. Cathrax's voice crackled over the comm, unusually subdued. "My warriors report movement inside, but not from survivors." Ilara suddenly gasped, doubling over in her chair next to Maya. "The voices," she whispered, her face pale. "So many voices, all screaming, all merged into one horrible chorus." Maya reached out to steady her. "What do you sense?" Maya asked gently. "Thousands of minds, trapped, consumed." Ilara's eyes were wide with horror. "They're still conscious, but they're not themselves anymore. They're part of it." Cathrax dispatched 3 squads of Vorkath troops in armored shuttles to search the station. Their helmet cameras transmitted nightmare scenes back to the fleet, corridors filled with pulsing organic circuitry, former crew members transformed into shambling cyborg horrors. "Pull them back," Maya ordered. "There's nothing left to save here." Before Cathrax could respond, Aide's voice cut through the command channel. "Captain, massive gravitational distortion forming. Something big is coming out of FTL." The space around them seemed to twist and darken. Maya felt her stomach lurch as reality itself appeared to bend. Through the distortion, she could see them emerging. Countless biomechanical ships, each one larger than a city, blotting out the stars like a swarm of metal locusts. "All ships battle formations," Maya commanded. "This is what we trained for. The Void Collective is here." The fleet moved into position, Vorkath warships forming their famous blade pattern, Meridian vessels spreading out to provide sensor coverage, and the Prometheus taking point position. On every bridge, crews checked weapons and steeled themselves for the fight of their lives. The Void Collective ships kept coming, an endless tide of horror emerging from the spatial distortion. Maya watched as they filled the view screen, their biomechanical forms blocking out all light from nearby stars. "All hands," she broadcast to every ship in the fleet. "Battle stations." As the station's wreckage loomed ahead, the true enemy finally revealed itself. The Void Collective had arrived, and now there was no turning back. The void erupted with sickly green light as the Collective's bioships poured through the breach in space. Their twisted forms, part organic and part machine, blotted out the stars like a plague of locusts. "All ships, battle formations." Maya's voice rang clear across the command channel. "Remember the drills. Don't let them isolate you." The Prometheus led the charge, its modified shields flickering with borrowed Vorkath energy signatures. Behind it, Kethrax's war fleet spread out in attack patterns, while Meridian support vessels maintained their defensive screen. "Multiple contacts closing fast," Lieutenant Vega called out. "They're using those energy tentacles to try and latch onto our smaller ships." Maya watched in horror as a Concordate fighter exploded, its hull being digested by writhing tendrils of corrupted matter. The Collective wasn't just destroying, it was consuming, assimilating everything in its path. "Aid, how are those shields holding?" Maya demanded. "The modifications are working, Captain, but they're already adapting." Aid's fingers flew across her console. "Each wave hits harder than the last." On the bridge of his flagship, Kethrax bellowed orders as 3 bioships surrounded him. The Vorkath vessels fought bravely, their weapon batteries lighting up space with deadly accurate fire. But for every Collective ship they destroyed, 2 more took its place. "Kethrax, pull back," Maya warned. "They're trying to box you in." Too late. Writhing tentacles of energy wrapped around Kethrax's ship, systems failing as the Collective began its horrific transformation process. The proud Vorkath commander faced certain doom. "Not today," Maya growled. "Helm, full power to forward shields. We're going in." The Prometheus dove through the swarm, its human Vorkath hybrid defenses barely holding. Precision fire from Simone's weapons teams severed the energy tendrils, freeing Kethrax's vessel. "I am in your debt, human," Kethrax admitted grudgingly over the comm. Meanwhile, Ilara stood in her meditation chamber aboard a Meridian vessel, face contorted in concentration. Her mind reached out, trying to pierce the horrible unified consciousness of the Collective. "So much pain," she gasped. "They're all connected, but it's wrong, twisted. I can slow them, but not stop them." The battle raged on. Despite their combined efforts, the Allied fleet was slowly being pushed back. Bioships had already attached themselves to the station's outer hull, beginning their grotesque transformation process. Maya studied the tactical display, jaw clenched tight. They were losing. Conventional tactics wouldn't be enough. Her eyes fixed on the station's reactor core readings, and a terrible clarity settled over her. "Aid," she said quietly. "How big of an explosion would that reactor make if it went critical?" The engineer's eyes widened as she ran the calculations. "Big enough to take out half the Collective fleet, along with anyone nearby." Maya nodded grimly. "Plot me a course. We're going to give these monsters something to chase." With the battle raging and the fleet barely holding, Maya made the hardest choice of her life. The Prometheus would become the bait, if they could survive long enough to make it count. Maya gripped her command chair as another explosion rocked the Prometheus, Warning lights bathed the bridge in crimson. Through the viewport, writhing tendrils of biomechanical horror pursued them, drawn by their desperate gambit. "Reactor core at critical mass," Aide reported, her voice steady despite the chaos. 2 minutes until total containment failure. "All non-essential personnel abandon ship," Maya ordered. "Lieutenant Vega, plot our final approach. We need to keep their attention until the last possible moment." The ship groaned as Maya pushed it beyond design limits. Behind them, the massive swarm followed, drawn by the Prometheus's erratic energy signatures. Simone Chan coordinated the evacuation, while a skeleton crew maintained their course. "Captain, Vorkath vessels approaching," Vega called out. "They're hailing us." Keithrax's face appeared on the main screen. "Rodriguez, you've proven your worth tenfold. Don't throw your life away. Let us extract you." "Someone has to ensure they stay focused on us," Maya replied, wincing as another hit rattled the ship. "Get your rescue shuttles clear." "Not without you," Keithrax growled. "The Vorkath do not abandon warriors of such honor." Through the chaos, Ilara's voice cut across the comm. "Maya, please. Let them help." The station's reactor warnings reached fever pitch. Maya watched the timer tick down, knowing they had mere seconds. Vorkath rescue shuttles appeared alongside, matching their desperate velocity. "Now!" Keithrax roared. "All ships covering fire." The rescue was a blur of motion and sound. Maya felt strong hands pulling her toward an escape pod as the Prometheus made its final run. They cleared the blast radius just as the station detonated in a blinding flash. The explosion consumed a massive portion of the collective swarm. Those that survived seemed to reel, their hive mind disrupted by the devastating loss. The combined Concordate fleet, fighting as one for the first time, seized the moment. "All ships press the advantage," Keithrax commanded. "Show these abominations the price of threatening our worlds." The remaining void ships, their coordination shattered, began to retreat. Victory cheers echoed across all frequencies as the united fleet drove them back into the darkness of space. Maya watched from Keithrax's bridge as the last enemy signatures vanished from their sensors. The impossible had happened. Humans and the Concordate, fighting as one, had turned the tide. If you enjoyed the story of Jonathan, I handpicked this next story that you will enjoy. Please don't miss this one. Click here to watch it.